The air was heavy with silence that night, the kind of silence that made your own thoughts echo too loud. It was one of those evenings where the world seemed to move on without you, where time dripped slowly like the ticking of a neglected clock on a dusty wall. I sat on my old, squeaky couch wrapped in a blanket that had seen better days, staring at the flickering television screen that was playing reruns of a sitcom I didn't care for. I was alone, completely and overwhelmingly alone. My name is Rachel Thompson, and if you'd asked me 5 years ago where I saw myself by now, I'd have painted you a picture full of warmth, a family, laughter, and a bustling home. Instead, I was 33, divorced for almost a year, and living in a two-bedroom apartment that still smelled faintly of the lemon cleaner my ex-husband, Jeremy, used to obsessively mop the floors with. We were married for 6 years before everything unraveled. Loneliness wasn't something that came all at once. It sneaks in slowly, showing up in empty chairs and silent dinners, in forgotten birthdays and unanswered texts. I thought I had prepared myself for life post-divorce, but nothing could have readied me for the kind of emptiness that filled my nights. It was raining that evening, the kind of persistent drizzle that makes everything look blurry and gray. Outside my window, the streetlights glowed like distant fireflies through the fog. I hugged the blanket tighter around myself and reached for the lukewarm mug of cocoa beside me. The heat barely touched my fingers anymore, but I held it anyway, for comfort more than anything. Just then, a loud knock at the door made me jump. No one ever came over unannounced. I hadn't had a visitor in weeks. My friends had slowly faded away after the divorce, their lives consumed by families and routines that no longer had space for a newly single woman trying to piece herself back together. I hesitated. For a moment, I wondered if I had imagined it. But then it came again, 3 knocks, deliberate and steady. I put the mug down and cautiously approached the door. My heart pounded as I peeked through the peephole. Standing there, soaked from the rain, was Michael Carter. I hadn't seen him in over 2 years. Michael and I had grown up in the same small town in Indiana. He was my neighbor, my high school crush, and my almost something. We had shared many summer evenings, stargazing on his porch, talking about our dreams. But life took us in different directions. He joined the military and traveled the world, while I stayed behind, went to college, and settled down too quickly with the wrong man. I opened the door, stunned. "Michael?" "Hey, Rachel," he said with a shy smile, water dripping from his dark hair onto his jacket. "I hope this isn't too weird showing up like this." I stepped aside quickly. No, come in. What are you doing here?" He shook the water off his shoulders and stepped inside. "I was in town visiting my mom. I heard you were back here alone. I guess I just wanted to check in." I shut the door behind him, still in disbelief. "I haven't seen you in forever." He smiled, and it was like nothing had changed. "It's good to see you." I offered him a towel, and he dried his face as I gestured toward the couch. "You want something hot? I've got cocoa." "Sure," he said, sitting down. "That sounds perfect." I hurried into the kitchen, my mind racing. It felt surreal, like a dream I might wake up from any second. I poured him a cup, heated it up, and brought it back. When I handed it to him, our fingers brushed briefly, and something stirred inside me, an emotion I hadn't felt in a long time. We talked for hours. About the past, the people we used to know, the little stores in town that had shut down, and the ones that somehow stayed open. He told me about the places he'd been stationed: Germany, Korea, Alaska. He told me about the friends he lost, the ones who made it home, and the sense of purpose that kept him going. And I told him everything: how my marriage had crumbled under the weight of unmet expectations, how I had spent months blaming myself, and how nights like this were the hardest. At some point, the rain stopped and the fog began to lift from the streets outside. But inside, everything was warming up. It felt like I had finally opened a window in a stuffy room, letting in fresh air. Michael looked at me with such gentle intensity that I found myself unable to look away. "You know," he said softly, "I always wondered what would have happened if I stayed." I smiled sadly. Maybe everything would have been different. Or maybe not. Life's funny that way. "I never stopped thinking about you," he admitted. Every time I was somewhere new, every time I saw something beautiful, I thought, Rachel would love this. Tears welled up in my eyes. No one had said something that heartfelt to me in so long. You have no idea what that means to me. He reached for my hand, and I didn't pull away. We sat like that for a while, silent, still, just holding on to something that felt real. It was after midnight when he stood up. I should let you rest. I walked him to the door reluctantly. Part of me didn't want him to leave. I didn't want this connection to end. As he stepped outside, he turned around. Rachel, if you ever feel alone again, just call me. I don't care if it's 2 a.m. I nodded, my voice catching in my throat. I will. He leaned in, kissed my forehead gently, and walked into the night. I stood there watching him until he disappeared down the street, the glow of the streetlights reflecting off the wet pavement. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel alone. Over the next few days, something shifted inside me. I started taking walks again, cooking proper meals, calling up old friends. Michael kept his word. We spoke nearly every evening. He made me laugh, asked about my day, and told me his stories in that calming voice of his. A week later, he asked me out. Our first date was simple, coffee at a quiet little cafe on the corner of Main Street. But it was perfect. We sat for hours again, talking, smiling, rediscovering the connection we had never really lost. It didn't take long for me to fall for him again. And this time, there were no what-ifs, no missed opportunities, no holding back. The nights that had once felt so endless and lonely were now filled with laughter, with shared dreams, and with hope. He made me feel seen, heard, valued. And I cherished every moment we had. Months passed, and our bond only grew stronger. He helped me heal, not by fixing me, but by standing beside me, steady and patient. Together, we built something new, something honest. One evening, as we stood on the same porch we used to sit on as teenagers, Michael looked at me and said, "It took me a while to find my way back to you. But I'm here now, and I'm not going anywhere." I smiled, leaning into him, "And I'm not letting you go." That night, as we watched the stars above the quiet town, I realized something important. I had been so alone that night when he showed up. But maybe that loneliness had led me back to the place I was always meant to be. Not in the past, not in the pain, but in the present with him. And that made all the difference.